Welcome to episode 156 of the Shared Security Weekly Show. And joining me is co-host and freedom fighter, Kevin Johnson.
I never know what you're going to introduce me as, and I enjoy it every time.
That's the best part of the show. Well, welcome back to the show. It has been an insane 2021 already. Like, what happened? Like, I saw people tweeting, saying, hey, hold my beer, 2020.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I enjoyed the meme. I tried my 7-day free trial, and now I'd like to return it.
Yes. Can I get my money back for 2021? Yeah. That's not going so crazy. Well. Yeah, it's been crazy.
I've been doing fine.
I know. Yeah. Things are. Yeah. It's interesting to me because, we all said, 2021 is going to be so much better than 2020.
We cursed it.
And it's just not going so well. But so the first couple episodes of the year, by the way, just a reminder for everyone, I did a short series on how to break into cybersecurity. Kevin was one of those guests. And then last week I had Rafalos. And so I want to encourage everyone to check those out, especially if you're a college student thinking about getting into cybersecurity. Just a great series. And hoping I'm going to continue that with a couple more interviews here in the coming months. So stay tuned for that. But for the topic this week, it's the craziness of the Capitol riots have happened. I kind of want to talk about the cybersecurity, the privacy ramifications of that. I think we all know the physical security issues. That could be a whole other show and a whole other topic in itself. Yeah. But specific to what we talk about on this show is cybersecurity and the First Amendment versus, say, terms of service. These are very controversial topics, and we've touched on these in the past in the show, right? Yeah. Section 230. These are long-running topics, but of course, everything came to a head, during the riots the other week, which were just unfortunate and just.
I don't know that unfortunate covers it.
Well, that's not even the right word, right? It's honestly, and no matter what political stance you take in this country, as an American, you should be disgusted. You should be absolutely upset at what happened. It's a travesty for American history.
And all seriousness, like we've talked about before, we're not going to get into the political side of this. We don't care who you support or who you voted for or whatever. We want to talk about how this affects security and what we do. So that's right. Even though both of us are very political and have our opinions. And you probably know what my opinion is from Twitter.
Yes. We may have some libertarian views. So that's all I'll say. Right. But so we saw news that Trump has been censored, right? On his Twitter account has been deleted, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all those things. We've seen controversial apps like Parler, and people that have extremist views are losing, or extremist views are having their accounts deleted or removed on all these social networks. So there's now this big uprising again, from the tech companies to censor what a lot of people are calling free speech. Yep. Now, I think it's really important, Kevin, and we had mentioned this before, that let's actually read the First Amendment, because I don't think some people probably don't know what the First Amendment actually says.
I would argue that if you live in the U.S. and went to school in the U.S., you have heard
you probably
the First
have heard
Amendment, but you probably ignored it.
That's right. So let's just to level set with everyone. So the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, or the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Yeah. That is word for word what it says. There is a lot of stuff there, but I do want to make a point that the first word in that, Congress shall make no law, I think is very important.
I think so too. I also think that, and like I said to you beforehand, I heard a phrase last night that I've heard before, but it was reminded of, is that the First Amendment's interesting in such that it is a negative right, meaning, and I want to be very clear, I only pretend to be a lawyer on 2 of my Facebook profiles, so none of this is legal advice, and I'm probably wrong.
Yeah, please don't take legal advice from Kevin.
Yeah, no, never. Is that it's a negative right in such that you already have the right of assembly, you have the right of free speech, you have the right to whatever religion you want, or lack of, or whatever. That the First Amendment prevents the government, Congress, from passing a law. It doesn't give you the right. And I think when I see this stuff on Twitter and Facebook on people complaining, I think that's the biggest complaint, is that people are like, hey, you're removing my free speech and the First Amendment says you can't. It actually doesn't say that.
That's right.
It says Congress can't do it. And so, like, whether you agree with it or not, and that I think is so important, is when you see things like Google censored this, Twitter censored this, Facebook censored this, none of that has something to do with the First Amendment. As much as you may want it to, it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't apply to private companies, plain and simple.
And don't get into the argument about, oh, they're traded on the stock market, so they're not private anymore. The term private is overloaded. They are still a private company with regards to how Tom and I are using the phrase, even though they are a public company. That doesn't mean they're owned by the government. Again, the government can't prevent this stuff.
That's right. That's right. And I think it's good for people to understand too that, all these social media companies, hosting companies, all these what you would call tech companies have something called the terms of service. Yep. And in those terms of service, I would say in pretty much every terms of service that at least I've ever read, they have language specifically stating that if you post anything that is illegal, encourages illegal activity, terrorism, violence against people, animals, all those things. And I'm actually reading from the GoDaddy, which is a hosting provider, which has, of course, taken down some of these extremist sites for violation of their terms of service, not freedom of speech.
And keep in mind that the terms of service, it may be called something else, license agreement, whatever, but the terms of service, the courts have upheld that the CFAA says, and again, we can argue whether or not the CFAA should be a law, but that if you violate the terms of service, it violates the CFAA here in the US. We are specifically talking about the US. I don't know enough about the law in the US to talk about anybody else's laws. That most terms of services I read are vague enough that they say, I could also just decide I don't want you on my site.
That's right.
And if we remove this from the big ones that are controversial, right? Mm-hmm. I run a platform. It's a training platform, but on that training platform, people are able to sign up. When they sign up, they can then comment on things. There are discussion areas for students to talk. And we have a terms of service that says, if you do something we don't like, and I'm very, very paraphrasing, if you do something we don't like, we can ban you. It does not matter. And let's be very clear, our training program, people pay for. They're paying for the course. Mm-hmm. I can kick you off that course if I don't like you. And that has nothing to do with your free speech. We haven't. You're right, we don't kick people off, but we don't kick people off because we haven't had to deal with it yet. Thankfully, knock on wood, pray our butts off, whatever, right? This is a protection that companies are using across the board. We're focused so much nowadays on the big companies, and I know they're monopolies, whatever, they're not. But that I understand why it angers people. But the reality is, if we start to undermine the ability for a company to say, you're causing a problem, I need you out of here, right? If we undermine that, we're going to have bigger problems.
Huge problems.
Yeah. So, and I'll use an example that I think is uncontroversial, right? If you are a member of the Klan and you are threatening to kill people that are not members of the Klan, that fit a certain category that you hate, right? I, as the owner of a platform, need the right to kick them off that platform.
Yes.
Because I do not
100%.
want my platform to be used to enable clan members to lynch people. And I don't know anybody who could say reasonably that that's unfair, right? Screw the clan. And I am, as you said, I'm not a freedom fighter. I'm a vastly strict supporter of the First Amendment. That if a clan member wants to go and stand up and say how horrible people he doesn't like are, he has that right, and I will fight to defend that right. I will also hate what he is saying and be disgusted by it, and be willing to punch him in the throat.
Yeah, I have the same feeling, as a U.S. veteran. I served in the military, and, I get really upset when I see protesters burning the American flag. But you know what? I fought for the right for people to burn that American flag. So does it anger
as you
me?
May seem it. Yeah.
Absolutely, it angers me. But this is, the freedoms that we have, and it should not be infringed.
Right.
But it's a totally different topic when we're talking about private companies.
Yeah.
And now a quick word from our sponsors. Given the state of the world that we are currently living in, your digital privacy, cybersecurity, and health is more important than ever. That's why I recommend the use of a Faraday sleeve for your laptop, smartphone, and key fob. And if you want the best Faraday products on the market, you need Silent Pocket. And because you listen to this podcast, you can take 10% off your order right now during checkout at silentpocket.com by using discount code SharedSecurity.
Is your team starting to show signs of fatigue from traditional security awareness compliance training, or from phishing assessments that target them for those teachable moments? As we've seen in recent news, these kinds of training are having a negative impact on corporate culture, and they're really not all that effective. So there has to be a better way. ClickArmor is the first gamified learning platform that helps build a self-defending team through engaging learning challenges and exercises. Its unique lesson templates, built with proven gamification techniques, let people learn and exercise important defensive concepts in a safe and fun environment. Whether you need to quickly deploy a training solution that gets people to stop clicking on things immediately, or you've got your own boring content that needs to be put into a more interesting user experience, ClickArmor can help. So go to clickarmor.ca/shared security to learn how to build a self-defending team.
And I think that one of the things that came up recently, to slightly slide off of the controversy, I've seen a lot of people, friends of mine, people I know, people I follow, that are talking about, hey, does your DR plan or your BCP plan take into account deplatforming? And I don't like using that term because it's become politicized, right? Like, one of these guys I've known him for years. He said, now that cloud providers can kick you off the internet, have you planned for that? And I actually had a little bit of a conversation with him, because it was like, that's not something new. That you should not be surprised by your service provider, whatever that service is, having the ability to just decide one day, not going to do this anymore, right? When you look at Jason Scott and archive.org, and right, they have actually done lots of things about platforms that have decided either to kick groups of people off, or to stop offering a service, or, hey, we're not going to do this anymore. And so Jason Scott's team goes and tries to archive that content so we don't lose it, right? The digital archives. So if you as an organization, you as a person, are not thinking about the fact that every provider can decide not to offer to you anymore, and what do you do if that happens, then I would argue your BCP plan, business continuity planning, right? So it's redundant to call it a BCP plan. ATM machine, just to irritate more people. But if your BCP isn't taking into account a backup, right? Yeah. I will acknowledge that those backups have become harder. And what I mean by that is, if you're using AWS's functionality, not just, hey, I put an EC2 instance and I stood up an Apache server with PHP, and right, not that, but if you're like using Lambdas as your backend, you're using an API gateway to get to those Lambdas. If you're using Amplify to deploy things, right? And by the way, I'm discussing how Secure Ideas uses it for their portal, our portal. moving from a Lambda and Amplify to Azure's corresponding tools, I'm blanking on the names of them, that's not a pull it, shove it, right? That's a rewrite of code. So I understand the difficulty, but you have to have a plan for that.
Yeah.
We do, right? And we're a weird company because of what we do. You do the same thing, right? Because we're hackers, as we do stuff, we always run the risk of a company misunderstanding what we do, or us triggering some automated system and have us deplatformed.
Yeah, I just had that happen with the Shared Security Show YouTube channel. It was deplatformed for what I thought was just no reason. In fact, no warnings, no strikes or anything. YouTube just said your channel's deleted because they said I violated their terms of service, which apparently they said it was spam and deceptive practices. I asked, what is that? I really thought I wasn't gonna get my channel back because I may have, I got caught up in an algorithm, because we talk about hacking, we talk about cybersecurity and all those things. And I could totally see, and this has happened to other people in the security community too, that they have been caught up in an automated system and deplatformed. And luckily they admitted they made a mistake and then brought our channel back. But it goes to show you that these things are going to continue to happen, even for the good guys, right? Like us, that talk about these controversial topics.
Well, and I've talked to people before where they talk about that, because you said caught up in the algorithm, right? Absolutely. The channel wasn't deleted because Joe sitting at his desk said, oh, well, that Tom Eston guy, get him off of YouTube. We hate that dude. Like, that's not what happened. An automated tool. Maybe somebody reported the channel, right? I'm sure we've pissed somebody off at some point. I know I have.
Not me, but you.
No, not you. It was totally me. Somebody might have reported it and said, hey, this is a bad channel, or some description or keyword triggered.
Exactly.
And the algorithm kicked it off. And so I've talked to people that are like, well, these companies should hire more people to, and it's like, no, do you not understand?
It doesn't scale.
It doesn't, there's no scaling. And have you ever talked to somebody who has done that type of censorship, that has been the human behind the algorithm? That is I don't know how people that do that don't kill themselves. And I don't say that flippantly. That's not a joke. It's a disgusting world out there. People suck. And so there is a psychological problem, not just the scaling problem, but I'll be blunt. You would not be able to pay me enough money to be the person who validates the censoring and the blocking, and no
it's
way.
Like working in forensics.
I don't do that anymore. I stopped doing that.
It's a horrible thing for people that work in that area have to go through.
We all owe them a drink, whatever they drink.
So I don't know, I guess maybe to end the show, I want to get your take on, where do we go from here? Like, there's so many bad things that have happened, and I'm thinking just from the cybersecurity perspective, I think we're going to be, my opinion is that we're going to be learning the lessons of what happened at the Capitol for months and years to come. I mean, we don't even know yet what impact that's going to have.
There are articles coming out today that are talking about the fact that the FBI is telling Congress people that they're going to be surprised by what comes out of this, that their investigation is already showing some of this stuff. I personally, I think that what we need to take out of this is we never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Because if you had told me 2 weeks ago this was going to happen, and people did say 2 weeks ago it was going to happen, they planned this whole thing in public. No, it's not. Keyboard warriors, people are jerks. There's no way they're going to do that. And they did. So all of those examples we've given over the years of this will never happen, you still have to take them into account. Does that mean you have to solve them? No. But you have to at least think about it, consider it. 2, you have to start planning for outages. Right. And not just outages directly. Right. You could say, well, we're not the Capitol. We're not the government. They're not going to come after us. You're right. They may not come after you. But I'll tell you right now, If you were the building next to the AT&T Center that got blown up by the RV, are you telling me that building suffered nothing? Right? If you were the person using the cell system that the tower got knocked down because some idiot thinks 5G is embedded in our vaccines and are going to kill us, right? You're impacted. If something triggers badly and Amazon removes you, how are you going to respond? So we really need to reevaluate that BCP and DR. I think, and I'll pick on security, myself included. Many of us forget that in the CIA triad, availability is one of the fundamental legs in security.
We forget about that.
Always. So we need to go talk to your developers, go talk to your IT people, talk to your business. If you're not looking at management and saying, hey, all, what are we doing next? How are we planning this? I think in my opinion, those are the important things to look at. We're going to have more later. There's more going to come up. That's what I think. I also think you need, and that we didn't talk about this a lot or at all, but you need to plan for adversaries that are angry at something you did, right? The Parler breach of data, which we mentioned but didn't dig into, and we can talk about that later sometime. But that's a good example of that's a bunch of data that went out because people got upset, right?
Yeah.
Valid or not, right? Like, I'm not arguing whether they should have done it, shouldn't have done it, whatever. Have you assessed your systems for that? Right.
And it's a lesson of OPSEC, because honestly, I was a little surprised to see how many people posting videos of them vandalizing the Capitol, breaking into the Capitol, literally using their first and last name, saying where they live. I mean, I was just like dumbfounded. Honestly,
the part that blew my mind is the number of people who are like, "Yay, we're in the Capitol. We did this. Look at me sitting in this chair." And then 2 hours later, I can't believe those people did that. Like, wait, you still posted they're both right there. They're at the very least delete the last post.
I mean, just even thinking, and I know we touched a little bit on the physical security aspect, but there's surveillance cameras all over the place in the Capitol. And you don't even need those cameras because there were so many posting and live streaming on the social media companies, which, by the way, they save all of that. That doesn't just go away, right?
Yep. Well, and that doesn't even get into how many cell phones were pinpointed inside the Capitol, right? How many networks did you connect to automatically? So, yeah, this was a bad one. I think that I hope that what people take away from this, from a cybersecurity perspective, is the thing you don't expect is what's going to bite you. And that's a hard thing to remember. This is not defeatist. This is not pessimism. I'm not saying, oh man, we'll never be able to figure this out. No, just think about it. Consider it. Have the conversation, right? Just talk. And if you can't talk about it, you can't do anything about it.
Great points. All right, Kevin. Well, hopefully, I'm like, what will we talk about next podcast? But hopefully, we'll maybe have a different topic. But I thought it was really important that we talked about this and get our thoughts and opinions out there for everyone. And if happy to carry on this conversation to any of our listeners that I know I've posted quite a bit on Twitter, and I've gotten lots of discussion from people that have different opinions about what happened. And I think it's important that we all continue that conversation as professionally as we can. So, all right. Well, thank you, Kevin. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll see everyone next time. That's all for this week's show. Be sure to follow the Shared Security Show on Twitter and Instagram for the latest news and show updates. If you like this episode, please hit that like and subscribe button. And please subscribe to us on your favorite podcast listening app. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next week for another episode of the Shared Security Show.